Hi all, I have a very interesting game to show you today. This was from a clock simul back in 1988. It was part of a film production called The American Gambit, which is actually on YouTube. So 6 of the most promising American players at the time, including Patrick Wolff, were in this clock simultaneous against Garry Kasparov. Kasparov had been making revolutionary, I would say, use of chess base at the time. It was quite new, and the head of chess base was actually supporting him heavily in preparing for each of his opponents. This tradition had started back in the Hamburg simul, which Kasparov used chess base to really destroy his opponents. So was he going to do the same here? Let's see in this game. So Kasparov white against Patrick Wolff. So the podcast in particular by Ben Johnson is well worth checking out, to check out what Patrick Wolff has to say about AI and other stuff in general. It's fascinating stuff. And the beauty of these podcasts, I was listening to this while walking around the garden actually, so they're fantastic for when you do exercise and want to listen to something at the same time. So many thanks to Ben Johnson for his fantastic podcast. So C4 from Garry Kasparov, E5 from Patrick Wolff. We have G3, knight F6, bishop G2, C6. So Patrick Wolff is setting up his centre, knowing it might be subject of attack. D4 already though, from Garry Kasparov. ED, queen takes, D5. C takes, C takes. Black has to cope with an isolated queen's pawn here. Knight F3, knight C6, queen A4. We have bishop E7. Both sides castle. We have bishop E3. Knight G4. Bishop D4. This seems to be very, very principled play from Garry Kasparov, blockading that isolated queen's pawn, trying to minimise counterplay. On the other hand, the dark square bishop without the counterpart, if white is allowing that, can't black just take and maybe celebrate this dark square bishop later? In fact, Patrick Wolff does take on D4, knight takes D4, and immediately he starts putting pressure on the dark squares with queen B6, looking at B2 as well. We see knight C3. Well, the queen's protecting the knight, and this looks like it will give white a lot of pressure, but also there's pressure on D5. So is it that advisable to even consider taking on B2? No, the whole point is revealed here. Queen H6, very, very direct attacking play, in fact, looking to checkmate on the next move. So Kasparov reacts with H4. If knight F3 is played, putting knight back, then maybe bishop E6. The D5 pawn has been given some respite. The bishop is now, for the moment, not looking at D5. This position, white should emerge with a small edge, for example here, technically. So anyway, here H4 was played though, not retreating the knight back from the blockade square. And we have a very, very interesting move from Patrick Wolff here. Very aggressive, very dynamic, very exciting. Can you guess what black played in this position? So with the isolated queen's pawn under fire, what would you play here against Kasparov in a simul? Well, it's interesting, but G5 was played. It looks as though caveman chess. Kasparov takes on D5, hitting the bishop. The bishop just drops back to D8. There's a slight disconnection issue between the rooks here. Not hello, goodbye, because the two bishops are in the way here. Disconnection issue, and in fact, can't white tap into this in some plot to maybe take out C8, for example, now and then take out G4 sneakily? So there's a plot on the horizon here with rook AC1, with some sort of ideas like that. If knight F3 instead, retreating the knight after G takes. Knight takes H4, bishop E6, rook AD1. Even in this position where you might think it's really bad to allow black to take on H4, perhaps queen F4, white stands with a small edge here. There's been structural damage really. These two pawns fragmented. White seems to look a little bit better there. So anyway, rook AC1 though was played by Kasparov, and we have G takes H4. And now rook takes C8. So yes, this looks like, oh dear, what's happening here? That immediately flags this as an unprotected piece, and they tend to drop off. Black now reacts with h takes g, there's no immediate check to worry about, and there's still a threat of checkmate here. If rook takes c8, can you guess what the idea is here actually? Kasparov's idea, presumably in this position, would have been queen d7, because it's hitting the rook and the knight, and this is check actually. There's no time to 8 for hg. If rook a8 here, just, you know, check, taking knight check. So this would be really bad. If knight f6, then just taking on c8, and hg is mostly harmless after knight takes, check, queen g4 check, and rook d1. There's nothing to fear here. White's just in a winning position. So we have, after rook takes c8, though, h takes g3. So this does threaten checkmate again. And now finally the knight retreats. And so that knight's been hit actually with this unveiling of the queen against g4. And the knight protects itself, as well as threatening another mating combination. Knight takes, and queen h2 is now on the cards. So very, very interesting situation indeed. We have here rook fc1 being played. It's a very interesting position. If rook takes a8, then we can see that knight takes, and then queen h2 is checkmate. So there's other interesting possibilities though as well emerging here. So rook fc1 though was played, and now rook takes c8 leaves this as an unprotected piece potentially, theoretically. You might think, is that a big deal? Knight takes f3, e takes, because otherwise it's a mate combination. If bishop takes, then there's check, and then queen takes f2. So e takes is important. G takes f2, check. Yeah, because if queen h2, this is not really doing anything after here takes check, and for example check, and queen takes f2, white's winning there. So g takes f2, and now king f1. There's an interesting thing going on here, that on king takes f2, can you see what black's strongest move is in this position? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. It turns out this unprotected piece can come into it in the critical line, which is queen h4. So looking at the queen, and if you know, the king moves to just take the queen, there's no penalty there. And if the queen takes, the thing is, bishop takes h4 unveils an attack against the rook, and that's just winning for black actually. So yes, it's that's why king e2 runs into that sort of thing. So king f1 leaving that pawn, but there's a micro upside of this pawn. It's actually rather dangerous here. Queen d2 threatening queen e1 checkmate, and looking at the knight, by the way, but queen e1 checkmate's the bigger threat. We have knight f6 check being played, king g7, knight e8 check. If knight h5 check, knight h5 instead, king h8, and there's no more useful checks for white here. So we have a situation with knight e8 check, king h8. If king g8, it's important to go away from queen g4 check, because here queen g7 is checkmate. That would be embarrassing, end to the symbol. So yes, avoiding that. King h8. And also, by the way, of note is bishop g5. We just have queen e4 actually here, and that protects e1, and if bishop h4 just back with the check, yeah, black has to interpose, otherwise queen g7. So that would be like, if black tries to play for a win here, it's going to be tricky indeed. It's only maybe a small edge for black. It's going to be a bit tricky. So king h8. We have queen e4, but now can you see the killer move that Patrick Wolff played? Okay, can you see the move that black played here? And Patrick is not a complete idiot, despite writing The Complete Idiot's Guide to Chess, which is a very highly recommendable book, by the way, for beginner, intermediate, and even advanced players. But he's not a complete idiot. He plays a really fantastic move here. Can you spot this move to defeat Garry Kasparov in this position? Really fantastic move, creating a real killer common square. Okay. Bishop goes to h4, and that means queen e1 is back with a vengeance, and it's very difficult for white to defend that. Impossible, it seems. You can throw in a check. The game ended here. Kasparov resigned. If check, f6 is actually sufficient. So if knight takes, we're just going to play queen e1. If queen e2, we're just going to play queen e1 basically, and this could be the final position, checkmate. So congratulations there. It's a bit late in the day. It was back in 1988, but that was before like the YouTube chess took hold. So back in 1988, Patrick Wolff, he played this fantastic clock simul game. I watched it on YouTube as well. You can check it out. He was the only one to win. There were 2 other draws though. So the overall result was 4-2 to Garry Kasparov. So Kasparov was really a really dangerous opponent in these simuls. Remember, this is the chess-based preparation tool as well, being used for the first time. So it's a bit of a technological checkpoint in chess history, where Kasparov was seeking out these challenges and really checking out the technology for preparation as well against these opponents. Okay, hope you enjoyed that, got something from it. If you want to check out Chess World and invite me for a game, Kingscrusher.tv or bit.ly/chessworld, register there, and I'll be able to invite you for a game at 5 Days Move at some point. Check out the playlists at bit.ly/LeelaChess, bit.ly/StopThisChess, and there's also a suave chat forum at Kingscrusher.tv/Discord. And also check out that Perpetual Chess podcast. It's really good. If you're walking around, want to do exercise, it's good to listen to. Okay, thanks so much.